Dear students, welcome to your course Introduction to Morphology of Angiosperms. In today's lecture number 14, we will talk about the reproductive structures of angiosperm. The discussion agenda for today's class um, is the reproductive structures of angiosperms, in which we will have a look on the life cycle of angiosperms. After that, we will talk about the reproductive tissue that are flowers of the angiosperms. In flower, first of all, we will talk about the flower production in response to the day length, that how the flowers are produced in short day plants and how the flowers are produced in long day plants. After that, we will talk about the structures of angiospermic flowers, in which we will study the different parts of flower and the number of different parts of flower. Uh, After the flower structure, we will study the variations in the flower structure, and on the basis of variation, that how many types of flowers are there, how many types of flowers are there on the basis of ovary position, and the variations of flower on the basis of uh, placentation. So first of all, the reproductive features or the reproductive structures of angiosperms. Uh, as you know that for sexual reproduction, there are various arrangement of angiospermic floral structure. But before that, we need to understand the life cycle of angiosperm. As you know that as I told you that the life cycle of angiosperm is comprised of sporophytic phase, right, and the gametophyte phase. I think we had completely discussed the complete processes and mechanisms of sporophytic phase and gametophytic phases. But however, we will just only go through also in this lecture. Basically, as you know that sporophyte is typically the body that we see when we look at the angiospermic tree. As you know that the cell of sporophyte body have full complete number of chromosome, or simply we can say diploid number of chromosome, or two in number of chromosome. Likewise, what is gametophyte? The gametophyte arise when the cell of sporophyte undergo meiosis, as here you can see in this figure, and produce reproductive cells, right? And produce reproductive cells. Uh, Furthermore, these reproductive cells have half number of chromosome. Here you can see only n, not 2n. 2n is diploid and n is haploid number of chromosome. The two-cell microgametophyte called the pollen grain that germinate into pollen tube, and through division, further meiosis, through meiotic division, right, produce a haploid male gamete sperm, right. In addition, the megagametophyte, there is an 8-cell. This is called the megagametophyte. As you can see, megagametophyte. And the megagametophyte called embryo sac that produce the egg, right? And after the fertilization of egg and sperm, it's give result to the zygote, and again this process is continuous on, and it's the complete life cycle of angiosperm: sporophytic phase and gametophytic phase. All these structure occur if there is a flower. Without flower, all these stages cannot be occurred. So what is flower? Flowers are basically the reproductive tissue of plant that contain both male organs as well as female organs. And as I told you in the previous slide, that after fertilization, the seeds and fruits are produced. Basically, the fruits are derived from the different floral parts of the flower. Uh, Basically, how the flowers are produced. So in this, the first we will talk about the production of flower in response to day length. uh, as you know that plants are classified as short day plants, long day plants, and day neutral plants. How these short day, long day, and day neutral plants are divided? Basically, they are divided in terms of their flowering response to day length, or simply we can say the photo period, right? Uh, Before going ahead to short day, long day, most of the plants are day neutral, means no effect on the length of night and the length of day. They are not induced to flower by either long or short day length, for example, tomato, etc. Because the main reason behind that is in the tropics mostly, where the photo periods do not change as much as in most of the temperate regions. So most plants in these areas are day neutral, right? However, moving ahead toward the short day plants, uh, first of all, let me to clear that rather than the length of day length, daytime length, it is actually the length of a dark period, or simply this is the night time. Here you can see this is the daytime and this is the night time, right? For flowering, rather than the length of daytime, it is basically the length of dark period or the night length time that impact the flowering in the short day plants, right? You get this point? Okay. Now come toward the short day plants. In short day plants, the vegetative growth occur during the long day period, right? And flowering, that is the reproductive growth, that occur during the short day periods. Short day periods meaning long night periods. Examples of short day plants include the Thanksgiving cactus. This is the figure, right? Um, Chrysanthemum species, lame squatter species, etc. Uh, Basically, if you look at the reason behind this, the nature of flowering stimulus in short day plants are not well known, but there is a stimulus that most likely to involve the interaction between uh, the flower inhibitor and flower promoter types of hormones. Means there are hormones that inhibit and promote the flowering in plants. Basically, during the short day and long day, and the variation in the short day length and night length, basically they promote specific type of hormones, and basically these hormones then impact, that induces changes in the flower emergence. So the evidence that the initiation of flowers involves these different type of hormones, because they produce different signals. Hormones is that the signals can be pursued by whichever leaf, or even if you took at the example of cucumber, and even for example in cucumber plant, if one whichever leaf is exposed, right, to short day, while the rest of plant, right, is exposed to long day, and only one mature leaf is exposed to short day, the flowering will result. Furthermore, by grafting a branch, right, from cucumber plant that has been given to short day into a cucumber plant given into the long days, the flowering is induced, and this is the flowering is induced in the system that are treated with the long days, and this is very basically the interesting fact. And the main reason behind that is, as you know, as I had told you, the hormones in that plant that are affected, right, and they that give rise to flowering. Now, what is long day plants, right? Similarly to as like to the short day plants, all the mechanisms are here also, right? So the plant that requires long day, as you can see, and short nights for flowering, right? And the example of long day plants include spinach, winter barley, winter wheats, and all biennials. As you know, what is biennials? As we had studied, biennial that are the plants that require 2 year for growth cycle. In the first year, they require cool winter and long days of second year for flowering induction. So basically, these were the short day, the differences between the short day and long day plants. Aside from all these, some plants, right, cannot be induced to flower by exposure to critical day length period after before reaching to the certain age, means that the long day and short day period did not have any impact on the flowering of these plants. Depending on the species, some trees are not flowering until from 5 even to 40 years of age. For example, we have a very good example of sugar maple tree. They may not flower until it reaches to 30-year-old. As you can see, this is the maple tree plants, and the age of this plants is range from 200 to 300 years. Going ahead, after flowering, uh, the first that we will talk about is the flower structure. And among the flower structure, first of all, we will have a look on the parts of flower. Among the parts of flower, the first one is peduncle. This is basically the peduncle, as you can see in this figure. I have also marked ABC and ABC here, right? Peduncle, what is peduncle? The stalk that attach the flower to the plant axis, right? This is called peduncle, or simply a pedicel. A pedicel is a stalk of a single flower, right? Mean either a single flower is attached or in a cluster, and cluster of flower, as you know, that is called inflorescence with many pedicels attached to the peduncle, right? After peduncle, the second part is receptacle. This is the receptacle, you can see, right? The enlarged part of flower axis where all floral parts, sepal, stamen, carpel, etc. are born at receptacle, right? After receptacle, the third one are sepals. As you can see, these are the sepals. The sepals, simply we can say, the sepals are the outermost whorl of floral parts that are mostly as like leaf-like structures, right? While the color, if you talk about the color, usually green in color. Even they may be also colorful in some species. And as you know, it's the most simple that the function of sepals are to protect the developing flower, especially in the bud stage, right? And all the sepals of the flower are collectively known as calyx. The fourth part of flower are petals. It is the second world. The first world is the sepals, and the second world are the petals. These are the petals. These are the petals. The second world of floral appendages or floral parts are petals, uh, which may be separate or sepals may be either partially fused together, meaning for partially attached together, or completely separated from each other. Usually, the petals of the flowers are maybe different colors, and the basic reason behind the color is to attract insects for pollination. The is like sepal. The combined sepals are called calyx. So the collectively all the petals make a structure that is called, or simply we can say collectively called, corolla. The fifth part of the flower are stamen. As you know, stamen consists of a filament. These are the stamens, right? It consists of a filament. The end is this the filament, and these are the anthers. Anthers and filaments, right? Made up of usually it consists of two pollen sacs which contain pollen grains at the upper end. As here you can see in this figure, all the stamens, because they are the male reproductive part, all the stamens collectively are termed as androecium. Similarly, the sixth part of the flower is pistil. These are the pistil, right? The pistil is made up of stigma, style, and ovary, right? At the apex of pistil is the stigma, right? And what is the function of stigma? Stigma, where the pollen grains adhere to a sugary liquid, right, secreted on the surface. And between the stigma and ovary is elongated part that is called the style. And all the pistil within the flower, right, many pistil of the flower, that is termed as gynoecium. If we talk about further the ovary may consist of one or more carpels, right, which contain ovules, and within the ovule, megaspores are formed. And the sporophytic and the gametophytic lecture we had discussed that how the megaspores are formed. And within the ovule, after the megaspore is formed, one of which is developed into the embryo sac containing an egg. And after fertilization, as you know, that the ovule develops into seeds, and the part of carpel where the ovules are attached is the placenta, and a locule is basically a chamber of spaces. And as you can see, this is a locule, right? Is a chamber of spaces within the carbon within the carpel. So these were all about the flower structure, among which we discussed the parts, different parts of flower. Going ahead, among the flower structure, the number of different parts. Uh, if we generalize in broad, the dicot flowers tend to have the floral parts in whorl, or simply we can say in coil, or in different rings of 4 to 5, means the floral part will be either the multiple of 4 to 5. And for monocot, these series of floral part will be in the multiples of 3. For example, the dicot flower might have 4 sepal, 4 petals, and as you know that the stamen are 2, so 4 multiplied by 2 is equal to 8 stamen, or may have 5 sepals, 5 petals, 15 stamens, etc. Right? And for monocot, the flower might have 3 sepal, 3 petals, and 6 stamen going ahead, etc., etc. These number of parts, when we observe in the flower, it is interesting to determine the number pattern, because the number of floral parts are mostly used in plant identification, or simply we can say the keying out of the plants. Uh, the next is the changes in the flower structure. Uh, the changes are the variations in the flower structure. Among that, the first one are the variation that impact the type of flowers. So, among the types of flower, the first one is the unisexual flower. As you can see in this figure, we can also term the unisexual flower as an imperfect flower. So what is an imperfect flower? An imperfect or unisexual flower has either stamen, or the male reproductive part, or pistil, or the female reproductive structures. As here you can see unisexual, that is staminate, only stamens are there. And this is another imperfect plant flower, that is unisexual, pistillate, only pistil is here. So such type of flowers are termed as unisexual, or in simple term imperfect. Imperfect means they are missing some plant parts. uh, the second one is bisexual, bi two, right? That is perfect. Mean a bisexual flower has staminate and pistillate structure, means they contain both stamen and pistil. As you can see in this figure, this is perfect. They both contain stamen and pistil. Uh, the third one is monoecious. Mono meaning one, right? Monoecious, an individual plant in one plant with separate unisexual, either staminate or pistillate flowers. As the name indicates, monoecious, an individual plant either with unisexual staminate are here. For example, when a plant having a unisexual flowers, that are termed as monoecious. The fourth one is dioecious. Di mean two. Dioecious, when a species has separate staminate flower plants and pistillate flower plants, means in one plant different species are there, right, which have separate either staminate flower or plants and pistillate. Mean one plant contain a staminated flower, and the other species of the same plant contain the pistillated flower. The fourth one is polygamous, right? As the name indicate, poly meaning many and gamete meaning sexual. So what is polygamous flower? An individual plant with bisexual flower. For example, plus staminate or pistillate unisexual flower, means in the polygamous flower contain bisexual flowers, and as well as contains staminate or pistillate unisexual flower also. That is the polygamous flower, right? The sixth one is the complete flower. A complete flower, as you know, that it has the staminated and pistillated structure plus sepals, petals, right? An incomplete flower that lack one or more floral parts. Like, for example, an incomplete flower have maybe like petals or sepals, etc. The second one in the variation in the plant is the variation of flower on the basis of ovary position, that where the ovary is present. The first of all among the ovary position is the superior ovary, as the name indicates, superior, above, right? As you can see in this figure, this is ovary, this is superior, that is above all the floral parts, right? So what is superior ovary? In superior ovary, the pistil is above the site of attachment of all other floral part like sepal, petals, stamen, etc., right? Similarly, the second one is the inferior, as the name indicate, inferior, below, as here you can see all the floral parts are above the pistil, or simply we can say the ovary, right? So the inferior ovary is below the site of attachment to other floral parts like sepal, petals, and stem, etc. Basically, the inferior ovary can be also either a half inferior or half superior, as you can see in this. The ovary is halfly inferior and halfly superior from other floral parts. So the inferior ovary may be either a half inferior or a half superior. The third one in the variation of a plant structure is the variation on the basis of placentation, right? Uh, in the placentation, the first one is the exile placentation, right? As you can see in this figure, right? So, what is actually the exile placentation? Uh, After the fusion of two or more carpel, as here you can see one carpel, two carpel, and three carpel, the fusion of one or two or more carpel, the ovules are attached to the placenta. These are the ovules, they are attached to the placenta, right? At the central axis, look at it is attached on the central axis. So this type of placentation is called exile placentation. And the second one is the free central, as the name indicates, central. The placentation is occurred in the central, as here you can see in this figure, central placentation. What is the central placentation? The complete fused carpel that lose their central walls, as you can see, they had lose their central walls, and the placenta is located in the center. This is the placenta, and all the ovules are attached, right? This is called as free central placentation. The third one is the basal placentation. Basal meaning at the base, as here you can see in this figure, right? So the placenta is located at the base of ovary. This is the ovary and the placenta. This is the placenta and ovule are present in the the base of ovary. This is termed as the basal placentation. The fourth one is the parietal placentation. In the parietal placentation, the placenta, right? This is the placenta. The placenta is located on the inner wall. Sorry, this is the placentation. The placenta is located on the inner wall. Look at the inner wall, right? This is the inner wall. This is the outer wall. This is the inner wall. Located on the inner wall of carpel, but do not extend into the central of. Look at the central of ovary is completely free, right? So in parietal placentation, the placenta is located on the inner wall of carpel, which do not extend into the center of the ovary, and this is called the parietal placentation, right? So this was all about the complete detail of flower, that how the flowers are produced, what are the structures of flower, what are the different parts of flower, and different types of flower variation on the basis of flower structure, right? So in next lecture we will talk about the stages of plant development. So Thank you so much for today's lecture. See you in next lecture.